Good evening. Live from New York, the CC Radio Network is proud to bring you tonight's show, The Rebellious Rev and the Doc, where we talk about religion like you've never heard before. There's no evangelists here, just talk about religion with a twist. So let's get started and have some fun. Welcome our hosts for tonight, The Rebellious Rev and the Doc.
There is no heaven, there is no hell, there is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebellious Rev and the Doc. I'm the Rev.
And I'm the Doc. And as the blurb says, we have a hodgepodge of info today. Couldn't really pinpoint anything religiously. The Rev, however, did do some research and came up with a great article, but I only got to read a little bit of it, and it's one of those things, Rev, that I think you have to read at least more than once, maybe twice, three times.
Well, it's the whole idea. The esoteric movement is it's a religious movement that's been repressed for thousands of years. You know, it's been underground, a secret.
Some people think that's where it should have stayed, underground.
But they're basically seemed, from what we read, they're very similar to the born-again Christians. But well, I'm not sure. We have to read a little bit more about them.
Well, we have to read a little bit more, and then we have to consult with our expert,
yes.
Who I'm sure will be calling us at some point this evening. But there are other things, meanwhile, that we can be discussing. For one thing, the Donald was very big in Iowa today. And in New Hampshire, he was giving helicopter rides to the children. And he had 2 press conferences where he actually answered questions. But of course, if you try to pin him down to details, he said, now's not the time to discuss these things, but I have a plan. Okay?
No, but he has come out with a few details lately, I will say, not 100% complete plan, but, it's moving in the right direction.
Well, I think he's starting to get better advice. I think he's trying to start to sound more like a candidate, whereas somebody like, Ben Carson, who, as I said to you, he really overcame quite a childhood to become a premier neurosurgeon in the country, but he said something about citizens, or not citizens, illegal aliens, okay, who, come here and don't go through due process or whatever. He said they should be stripped of their citizenship. Okay?
Well, maybe he means after they got, I don't know what he means. It's like Bush when he slipped.
Well, Bush made a lot of slips. You're talking about George W., right?
No, I'm talking about
Jeb?
Jeb, yeah.
Yeah,
Jeb.
Well, I think that runs in the family.
But one of the other things that I see is happening, and it's been the downfall of the Republican Party, they're starting to mix women's rights, women's issues, religion, and politics. And those two do not mix.
Well, it's unfortunate, but the bottom line is they've always done that. They have always, one woman said, maybe I should declare my uterus and my vagina a business, she said. That way, the government will leave it alone. They won't try to regulate it.
Well, but I don't remember which one of the politicians said it's every politician has the right. Cruz, Rubio, they all have the right to oppose abortion. They have the right to believe that the baby is, upon conception, it's a living thing and you shouldn't abort it. And if they ever get pregnant, they don't have to.
It's very true. Very true.
They have no right to impose their will on somebody else. Religion, politics, civil rights, and all these civil issues should not be part of the politics. We all have, we're all allowed to have our feelings about things, and we don't have to support.
That's right. Their personal feelings. You shouldn't cloud the, political atmosphere. How many times have you heard me saying, Felix, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one,
Yeah, so, it's a shame because, maybe Rubio would be a good, he might have a lot of good ideas, but everybody's talking about him saying, there should be no abortion, there should be none. They're all of a sudden going in that direction that you shouldn't be.
That's right. Not even in the case of rape or incest, or if the baby isn't viable, it may not survive, or if the baby is going to be born, with health issues or become a burden.
Well, if it's just an issue of a burden, I mean, in reality, you can have somebody adopt a baby if it doesn't have health issues. I agree with them. Basically, there's a point which is 5 months, which I would agree. I wouldn't.
Well,
I wouldn't want to see any abortions after.
We're not talking late term abortions here. We're talking early term.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, and I don't know. Again, even at that point, does anybody have the right to stop it? Maybe they do. Maybe at that point, there might be some reason. It could be legal to stop the abortion. I'm not sure.
Well, what about those abortion? The people who were protesting, who it was okay to kill that doctor because he performed late-term abortions.
Yeah.
They justified it by saying he was committing murder. So what are they doing? An eye for an eye?
Yeah, those are fanatical groups, extreme groups. We're talking about people that want to run the United States, people who want to be your president and your vice president. You have to keep certain things apart. There's a thing in the United States, the Constitution says separation of church and state.
Well, it seems the Republican Party has a difficult time separating church and state. But let's move on. I don't know if you caught the news. I know you've been busy running back and forth to the hospital, but United States officially opened ties with Cuba today. The flag was raised on the old American embassy in Havana.
And I had a Cubano today in honor of the day.
Oh, did you? Okay.
But it wasn't real Cubano. They used turkey instead of pork. A little healthier Cubano.
I was going to say that, trying to be, make sure you eat healthy. But still, there's a lot of tension between those who, the older Cubans remember what it was like. And, I'm talking about Cuban Americans who escaped to the States, and their children and the young children, when I say children, I mean they're in their 20s and maybe 30s, they don't know what it's like to have normalized relations with America.
And it's been 54 years since Cuba has become a communist regime run by the Castros. And a 50-year-old person there doesn't even know what it was like before. To them, this is the life they live, is the only life they know, and this is
Well, I
it's
tell you,
supposed to be.
the one thing I really like when they show pictures of Havana now, those old cars from the 50s, you know,
Yeah. All those Chevys, man.
yeah,
The other thing is they were saying that we started having these negotiations about 8, 9 months ago with Cuba to do this. And the human rights violations have increased quite a bit during those 8, 9 months.
and yet today there was a big problem with supposed ambassadors or spokespersons. The Cuban spokesperson said the United States talks about human rights violations. He said we violate more human rights in this country between racism and everything else than they do in Cuba. He says, like the old people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
That's true. Listen, both of them, Cuba wants to show that they're doing this, but they're not giving up any of their traditions or the way they're running the government. And the U.S. is trying to show that they're going to make a difference. And as usual, the U.S. is probably going to be wrong. Because whenever they interfere in somebody's problems, and it usually doesn't turn out too well for the U.S.
Now, a lot of times we wind up putting our foot in our mouth,
Today is also a big day. Today was DJ Day.
That's right. For those of you too young to maybe, or you don't remember your history, victory in Japan, because back, I think it was August the 8th, United
14th.
States dropped the bomb on
Hiroshima.
Nagasaki or Hiroshima, I'm not sure which one.
Hiroshima was the first one.
The first one was Hiroshima, I know. And a couple of days later, they dropped the other bomb, and the Japanese had enough.
Unconditional surrender today, the 14th.
Right.
And at that time, Japan vowed never to have a military force again.
I know, but recently, they want to change their constitution so that.
They can well,
I tell you, they need it.
They
First
need
of
it.
all, America needs it because Japan is a big ally of this country.
they need it because of China.
Well, but we need it because we have to be able to rely on support in the Pacific, and that's what Japan would afford us: support in the Pacific. They're a big time ally, even though they export all those Japanese cars that Americans just love to buy.
Because they're good cars.
They are good cars.
Now the Americans are starting to catch up with them, and the numbers are showing it.
Yeah.
Listen, the consumers of the United States, when it comes to car, they're looking for quality and price. And it just so happens in the United States, we're only able to produce high price cars.
Well, because we have such a high standard of living, and we still have an auto union, and they've made many concessions, but still, they want a living wage. I guess you can't blame them, really.
Well, no, I'm just talking in general. The United States was producing high-cost cars that were not very reliable.